Yeah, this is another situation that's happened several times. Also, I'm sorry I'm not able to film the screen at this distance without having it look like this. There's nothing I can do about it, it seems like. Yeah, this situation has happened several times where I have contacted someone who was renting an apartment, a real estate agent or the landlord directly, and it seems like, you know, I mean, they asked our initial questions. It's all right at the beginning. You know, this is the conversation that we had, right? And then she says, great, what time to visit the apartment? And then she asked me if I'm working or going to school. And then, like, there's this. I tell the truth. No, I'm not working. Unfortunately, I'm not working. The conglomerate has forced me into dependency, right? It made it impossible for me to find work, you know, which of course is going to lead to somebody being homeless. But I'm saying I would like to be working. I want to attend school, but I can't. I had hoped that I would be able to work when I was living in this apartment and to be able to start attending school when I was living in this apartment. But all I could do for an entire year was deal with the fact that I was being abused in this apartment, right? I mean, it's since June I have been dealing with. Not only the abuse that the landlord was inflicting on me as soon as I got here, but also has continued to inflict on me almost the entire time. But also I had to deal with being evicted, and like as soon as I got the eviction notice, or they had their attempt to evict me, as soon as I got the eviction notice in June, I couldn't like actually. I had no idea where I would be a month from then, 2 months from then. You know, it's not like you can actually decide where you're going to work, where you're going to go to school, and that sort of thing, if you don't even know where you're going to be living or if you'll even have a place to live, right? So I mean, almost the entire time that I have lived in this apartment, the only thing I've been able to do with this apartment, you know, are none of the things you're supposed to be able to do. You know, certainly as far as having like moving on even from being even able to work or school or any of those things, that I wasn't able to do that. The only thing I've been able to do is deal with being abused here. That's it. You know, while everyone's calling me while they're calling me a slacker and, you know, like accusing me of this, accusing me of that, I will tell you something. What I have noticed, you know, about landlords who are, you know, who look down on people who have vouchers is that they don't look down on the money, do they? They take the money and then they abuse the tenants. And then there are people who just, you know, she did not write me another message after this. I tell her I have a housing voucher. It's guaranteed rent for the landlord, and the payment of the rent will be a problem. I mean, this question, are you working? You know, do you work in this area? Is kind of like a polite way. It's sort of a polite way of asking how much money the person has, because eventually eventually they kind of guess they try to ask those kind of questions. You know, and I tell her, no, I'm not working. But you don't have to worry about the rent. I'm telling her this. I'm identifying the issue, and giving her the answer that she needs to know. No, the rent's guaranteed, but that's it. That's all. That's it. She has not written to me again. This was like, you know, it was, yeah, 5 hours ago. She wrote me this email when it wasn't quite 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and now it's, you know, almost 8:30. You know. And then that's it. I'm probably never going to hear from this woman again. And it's not the first time this has happened. It's certainly not the first time that it's happened, right? I mean, it's you know, the person who has someone who has a voucher pays a portion of the rent, and then the voucher pays for the rest of it. It's supposed to be so that you can do things with your life, so that you're not dependent, so that you can go to school, so you can go to work. And there are people who are, you know, who are not able to do those things, or never going to be able to do those things. It doesn't mean that they should be homeless, right? But I can't even tell you how many times something like this has happened. And I've had people say things over the phone that are discriminatory, like, you know, what about people who are, you know, and it was a guy who told me this one. Right? He's like, what about the poor guy who's working, you know, and has to support his family, and he doesn't quite make enough money to live in these apartments. Why should you basically he was saying, why should you be able to use a voucher to live here when that poor guy, you know, who's like, you know, doing all this work and doesn't quite make enough money, can't live here? I'm like, look, the conglomerate, because I am female and have said I am not going to be a second-class citizen. I know the conglomerate's trying to treat me like one. You know, that's the conglomerate has, you know, attacked me for being female, right, and for not being subservient. And I can't even find a job to not even make enough money at. Right? I mean, it's like I have absolutely truly been forced into dependency, and then I get attacked for that dependency, right? Yeah, and there's other situations where they're, I think that person was probably discriminatory just against vouchers in general, probably all sorts of people, because the thing that a lot of places do, especially like where it's like a big business that is that has just like has some sort of like application, and you have to pay anyway. You have to pay the application fee, the $50 here. $50 is about how much it usually is just to apply for an apartment, right? And that doesn't mean you get the apartment. It just means you applied for it. Places they will ask you how much money do you make, and then they'll reject you based on how much money you make, even if the voucher will cover the rent, right? So their insistence is you have to have with whatever the income is that you have, it has to be for a month 3 times whatever the rent would actually be. Because they want to be, the idea ostensibly is that they want to make sure that you're able to pay your rent, but a voucher is guaranteed rent. And I actually had that conversation with one of the first places where I applied like months and months ago when I was thinking about I'm gonna be trying to move out of this apartment. I had the conversation with them. I said, the money, no, I don't have enough money by itself, just money to pay for the apartment, but I have a voucher. The voucher is guaranteed rent. But then they sent me a letter saying, no, you're disqualified because of, you don't meet the income requirement. Right? They just totally ignore it. They go right past it, and they didn't want me anyway. I mean, that was a place. Granada Highlands was what that place was called. I mean, I could see they had apartments available. I applied for a 1-bedroom. It was, I paid the money for it. I paid the $50 application fee. I show up for my appointment. She tries to pretend she doesn't know how to use the website, and she's like, oh no, look, there's no actual 1-bedrooms available. It was all a mistake. She showed, it was just it was totally ridiculous. Everything that happened, just total lies. They were telling me all about it. They were there. It was just, it's going to be difficult for me to find a place to live. It's already been difficult for me to try to find a place to live all this time. I've had these types of experiences, right? And that was in addition to my trying to find a place. There were entire suburbs that I didn't even look. I would see the name of the suburb or the town, whatever it is, the city listed, and I would say no, I can't. I think about moving there because of what the conglomerate will say about me. And in fact, if I even look at a place, if I even will like click on the listing for some place that the conglomerate thinks it can use as code, it's like all over me. It tax me right away. Right? It's been very, very difficult, which I thought it probably would be, and it is, and it's continuing to be that way. And I'm supposed to be out by February 1st. Right, or all the things that I've just described, are going to happen, and I have to go to court to try to ask for the extension. I have to, do that, think about that, worry about that, get ready for that, and I'm also supposed to continue to try to find an apartment while I'm dealing with going to court just to get the extension. Right, I can't do anything. Really, cannot. When does anyone expect me not to be dependent anymore? If you're preventing me from work, preventing me from school, preventing me from doing productive things for myself, when do you think I'm going to be able to do those things?